Hey everybody, it's your pal Mike Zombie, and this week we're going to talk about my review of Day of the Dead from 1985 from last week. A bit of background. McPierce might be the easiest guy to work with on the planet as far as podcasting is concerned. He lets me do whatever I want, doesn't give me any static, doesn't correct my mistakes, doesn't try to push me in a direction I don't want to go, and he's really lenient about when I submit, which is good. I'm sure it would be helpful to him if I sent my reviews on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or a Thursday, or even a Friday. And sometimes I do that. I mean, sometimes I try to plan ahead and get it to him on a Thursday or a Friday. Lately, for the last month or so, I've just been really busy. And I end up doing the podcast or the review late Friday night, probably even after midnight his time, and emailing it to him. And he gets up in the morning, instead of enjoying his breakfast, has to put it all together because I'm running late. Well, last week was a bit different. I was really busy last week. And instead of watching a movie, I thought to myself, hey, I'm really busy, so I'll just review a movie I know and love, and it'll be easy to do. I don't have to watch it. I can do it from memory, and everybody's seen this movie, and we'll kind of commiserate, and blah, blah, blah. It'll be great, because I didn't have that much time. So sure enough, I put it off, and Friday rolls around, and I get into a fight. So, hey, let's cap this off by getting completely shit-tanked. And so I'm good and drunk Friday night. And I remember when I wake up in my chair, because I've actually passed out in my office, woke up in my chair in front of the computer, probably, I think it was 2 in the morning, West Coast time. And I looked at my computer screen and thought, oh no, I haven't done my review for Day of the Dead. So I fired up Adobe Audition, grabbed the microphone, and started blabbering. Now, if you'd listened to last week's review that I did, it's pretty clear I'm drunk. I'm going to give you a couple of examples that I'll cut in. And says, talk to your Aunt Alicia. And he picks it up, kind of haphazardly holds it sideways next to his head, out of what he's seen, out of memory. And he says, he mumbles something about Alicia, very quiet. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, my review was about 3 minutes long as opposed to the usual 8 or 9 minutes, because instead of saying something thoughtful, I just kind of talked about how I like Bub, and everybody likes this movie, and everybody likes Bub, and I didn't really give it any substance because I was just shit-hammered. So, listen, I'm going to redo it this week. I'm going to redo it in just a couple of minutes here, but before I do, let me say something, and I mean this sincerely because I've been pissed at myself all week. I'm sorry, guys. I let you down. I let some personal bullshit and booze stand in the way of what I try to do. And I do this because I like it. And I don't get all the bad feedback. I'm sure McPierce has received a bunch of, what the hell is Mike doing kind of stuff, or what did he say? And he's kind enough not to pass that along to me. But I really deserve some real serious criticism for last week's effort, because it wasn't an effort. So, first off, McPierce, I'm sorry. I really let it go, and I really sent you some poop. And to the listening audience, man, I let you guys down, each and every one of you. So I'm sorry. I'm going to make up for it right now with a real review of Day of the Dead from 1985. Lately, I've run into a bunch of people who prefer Day of the Dead over any other Romero film, which I find interesting, because I think Day of the Dead's a good movie. It really is. But as far as the zombie trilogy, to me, it's number 2, even though chronologically it's number 3. But I do like it. We'll pretend you haven't seen this movie, but I know you really have. A small group of scientists, along with a small regiment of military folks, are kind of living in a bunker. And I'm assuming it's somewhere in Florida. And there's 2 different camps, obviously, going on. We've got the medical side, the research side, where they're, trying to find a way to reverse or fix or maybe even exterminate easily these zombies, because it's pretty clear they're running out of bullets. Or the military side. And they don't really get into it, but they apparently were in charge initially of taking care of these folks and watching out for them, but the lights in Washington have gone out. They haven't been getting orders for quite some time. As far as they know, they're all alone, and the military guys are kind of wondering, what the hell are we doing? You know, why are we supporting you guys? Why are we risking our asses going out there and collecting zombies and putting them in these underground caves so you guys can chop them up and try to find some magical way to fix them or to reverse them or whatever? So we've got the argument of let's you know, make things better and let's just wipe shit out. Now, in the middle of these two groups are the heroes. I'm going to have to sit down with McPierce soon, and maybe someone else, and do something on the Romero films, because I've realized, and I don't think this is news to anybody, but I had the realization that George Romero's most successful films kind of have these weird elements that are the same, especially when it comes to a zombie movie. We've got the black hero. In Night of the Living Dead, I mean, Dwayne Jones was cast, from what I understand, just because he was available, and apparently had worked with George before, and they worked well together. So we've got the black hero, the white woman who's kind of, you know, frail and, you know, victim, but then somehow manages to either just stand up or stand up and be strong. And, of course, the antagonist, because often, and that's the thing, to me, in a lot of Romero's films, the zombies aren't the ones we have to worry about. The zombies aren't the enemies. The zombies are just kind of a function. The zombies are kind of a human function, like a tidal wave. I mean, a wave is a wave, and if it rolls in like in a tsunami and flattens my house, it's just doing what a wave can do. It's not trying to hurt me. It's doing what it does. And I think zombies kind of fill that role, though we identify with them because they have a face. But I think the real nightmare, the real enemy in the Romero films are always the fat white guy that's totally racist and just, you know, pretty much doesn't care about anything but himself, be it Cooper, Wooly, or, of course, you know, straight on up through Day of the Dead. Every one of these movies has this guy, and he's always pretty entertaining. So, but that's part of the deal. And George loves helicopters. So we have in all of these movies the same kind of element. Black hero, weak white woman, fat racist white guy. And, of course, damn it, we've got helicopters, and Day of the Dead is no exception. We start off as the heroes kind of take the science team into a town to look for survivors, and they're yelling, and you know, you've heard it, hello, hello, you know, that creepy droning of, you know, we're the last group alive, trying to call out survivors. But of course, what does it do? It rattles up the zombies, and they all get kind of pissed and irritated and walk out into the street. They realize there's nobody here. Let's go. So they go back. And I like the fact that even in the middle of all this chaos and nothing's happening and we're not having any success, that they still don't give up. They're still wasting that fuel, trying to find a few more people that are alive. And I appreciate that. But as the newspaper unfurls against the door to show us, it says The Dead Walk, which gives us a little bit more of a look inside of what has gone on in the beginning process, because Romero doesn't show very much in the beginning process. I think pretty much Night of the Living Dead he did the most, where we've got news reports and other stuff. I mean, we get a little bit of that in Dawn of the Dead, but, you know, then suddenly, hey, man, they're taking off, they're going to a mall, and we pretty much lose the radio after that. It's good to see that they're still trying, and we get a little more of a look. So I'm just going to whip through this movie, but a better review than I did last week. They're living underground. We've got people fighting against these zombies. We've got the scientists fighting against the military. And one of the main dudes is, of course, well, they call him Dr. Frankenstein. Even the people that like him call him that. And he's the head researcher. He's the head doctor. And he's going a bit insane. And he's speedily going through these zombies and just trying to, you know, hack them up and take him apart. But he stumbles upon Bub. And Bub is a special zombie because Bub isn't as aggressive as the rest. Bub kind of likes us. Bub, even though he's on a chain and kind of walking around and might bite us if he had the chance, also might just hang out and just stand in the room and be one of us. He doesn't seem to be fully turned like the rest. So Dr. Frankenstein spends a lot of time trying to get Bub to do, you know, things that the rest of it. He tries to get him to speak and They work on some memory issues and some coordination issues. And, of course, he takes us to the researchers and says, hey, look at the great work I'm doing. We're going to find a way to tame them. And the military, especially Joe Pilato, Captain Rhodes, is bullshit. This is not going on. This is not why I'm saving you. And this is not why I'm putting my ass on line so you can train these dead things to do tricks. And in a way, I kind of agree with him, But I also kind of agree with Frankenstein and everything. I agree with a little bit of everything in this movie. So this goes on and on. Tensions mount, and they start simply fighting each other. I'm not going to give too much away about the action. You've already seen it. But, of course, hell is unleashed inside this bunker. And we have some spectacular deaths. Captain Rhodes / Joe Pilato is no exception. Probably the top-notch death of the film. So everything inside crumbles, pretty much. They lose the safety, the infrastructure. Everything about the last place they could possibly live safely just falls apart. And we start, and of course this also happened in Dawn of the Dead, and not so much Night of the Living Dead, but of course Dawn. So there's that story, but there's multiple stories in this film. And I think George went out of his way to make multiple stories in this film. There's a story for the military, a story for the scientists. The zombies kind of have their own stories, and the story of what is to become after this. We really hope that someone gets in touch with Washington and that there's a safe place for everybody to go. And we hope Bub lives forever. And I guess, not to give too much of the story away, but George could have made an interesting movie about what happens to Bub after this. I'd kind of like to see that. I'd kind of like to see Bub kind of wander out and do his thing, and And now I'm going to talk about some things I liked, some things I didn't like. Usually I don't do this with reviews. I might start doing this. What I liked about this movie, I liked the characters. I really did. I thought these people worked very well together. Night of the Living Dead, I thought people didn't really match up well as far as who they were. I mean, even they were supposed to be different, groups of people, but I mean, the people seemed awkward even to the people they were close with. Dawn of the Dead I thought was much better, but I think the Day of the Dead, there's a lot more camaraderie in all the groups, and I really like that. I also like the fact that we got more into the mechanics of being a zombie, especially with Bub, and it gave us hope that maybe if we should turn, that we won't lose everything and maybe still enjoy the things that mattered to us most. What I didn't like about this film, George kind of went out of his way to continue the featuring certain zombies. But I have no problem with that. Bub obviously is a feature zombie. But when you watch them walk through, you see some zombies coming through in ridiculous costumes that they wouldn't have been wearing. Like one guy's a clown with makeup still on. There's like a part of a marching band comes through, and George doesn't make silly, stupid slapstick movies. So, there would have been no reason in the middle of a zombie apocalypse for a band to be marching around in some parade. It wouldn't have been happening. All the children's parties would have been canceled. So there wouldn't have been the clown zombie guy with makeup still on his face. These things just wouldn't have happened. That's what I didn't like about this movie the most. And I wonder, looking back, if George regrets that kind of stuff, because when he wants humor, he puts it in, like the pie scene from Dawn of the Dead. That was deliberate humor. And I never understood the motivation for putting the silly costumes in Day of the Dead. I mean, unless you're just trying to make them memorable, because I can remember them, but it didn't make the most sense. All right, this review's gone on much longer than I'd intended, especially with my apologetic intro. So let me say, definitely, you owe it to yourself to watch every George Romero film ever made. And these other things coming out in the remakes. And I can understand not wanting to see these, but you at least need to see the original trilogy, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead. And you need to do them all in one night with some friends and some popcorn and some pizza. And sit around and appreciate where all this crazy shit you're seeing today came from. Because that's where it did come from. Thanks for bearing with me on my second review of the same film in 2 weeks. Hopefully this was a bit more coherent. Watch this film. It's kick-ass. And thanks, guys. We'll talk to you next week.